All right, so today we are talking about networking. Now, when I was researching for this topic, I realized that there are five different categories that networking can be broken into. And some of them I feel really drawn towards, others I feel disgusted and turned off by them. But I also felt like it was really interesting to see networking broken down in this way because it also reminded me how many different options are out there. And I think you don't have to do them all. So the five different categories are traditional networking, which is your corporate events, happy hours, professional clubs. That one gives me the ick a little bit. Yeah. Strategic curated networking, like warm intros, small group dinners, and paid exclusive clubs. The third one is digital and social networking, like cold intros, social networks like LinkedIn and online communities and Slack groups. Then we've got casual networking, which is co-working spaces, gyms, retreats. That one sounds, nice. And the fifth one is service-based networking, like mentoring, collaborations, and partnerships.
I was just going to say, I've never thought about it like that before. It was very interesting getting that breakdown.
Yeah, and it broadened my mind a little bit, and I think before the episode I was feeling like, "Oh, you know what? I don't do that much networking," but then I realized I actually do. Like, I'm a part of Slack communities, I'm a part of smaller groups, but I think when we think networking, sometimes we just go towards the obvious choice, which is these sterile, rigid, corporate mixer type events, and it can make you feel a little bit icky. And a reframe I did a few years ago was actually just to remove the word networking and think about it like you're actually just making friends. It's
Yeah,
being social, it's putting yourself out there. It doesn't need to feel big and bad and scary.
I totally agree. I think networking is gross, but having a network is very cool. And so it's sort of like throw away everything that you thought networking was, and we're gonna we're gonna show you a better way to do it. But can I tell you something, Michelle?
Please.
So I have had 4 sort of like big girl jobs in my career, and then at Google I changed product areas or departments 5 times, which technically you're meant to interview for. But I've only ever interviewed for one of those jobs, and that was the job at Google. I interviewed for that. And so how did I get all the other jobs and change departments at Google so many times? Network. That's it. Like, I was always approached for the job, and that just came down to people knowing me, knowing my work, and then like coming after me basically. So I sort of, I think everyone uses their network in different ways, but for me, my experience is that it has pretty much bought me every good opportunity in my career. So I'm pretty pro. Yeah.
You have just reminded me of a quote I heard once, which is your network is your net worth.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
love
feel like
that.
yeah, I feel like that just describes your career path.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's sort of what this episode's about, right? So, like, Michelle, you as well, like, I thought it was so genius when I saw you doing these anti-network events because I was like, that's it. It's like everything you think you think about networking, throw that away. And it's like the opposite of that. So I love that event series that you run. What's cool about this episode, in a way, I think you and I are kind of giving away our secrets in that we've got quite a unique approach in that I think we've both found networking to be incredibly useful in our own careers, but also because we do have some level of public profile, people will often try to network with us. Like, I have lots of people reaching out to me online. And so I also see the like do's and don'ts for people like trying to network with you as well. So just going to be sharing all this today, which I think is going to make it a really interesting episode for everyone.
So if you mentioned the anti-network, which has become a bit of a passion project for me, I suppose, and it happened a few years ago. I caught up with a friend of mine who's a founder, and it was at a time where I was feeling really down in the dumps. I think as a business owner or honestly anyone who's pursuing their career pretty aggressively, sometimes you can just not feel that happy or proud or like you're where you're meant to be. And I was in this lull where I just wasn't feeling it. And I realized that I just really went inward and closed off. And I stopped sharing things online because I think that's often the hardest time to show up. And I caught up with a friend, shared this, ended up feeling very validated by them. So I went out on my socials and shared that I was finding it a pretty isolating journey and that I was finding it hard to connect with people and that I didn't really feel like there were many networking opportunities out there where I felt like I could show up and not feel like I have to fake it till I make it or pretend
Mm.
that I'm killing it. And it was in sharing that that I just got inundated by people feeling the same, and not just founders, like people in exec roles or people leading teams. I feel like those roles can often be quite isolating. And so I ended up saying, if I came to Sydney and Melbourne and did a get together that was like the antidote to how you normally feel in these networking environments, would you be interested? And I ended up collecting a list of 400 people's email addresses.
No
Um,
way. I
and that was
didn't
kind of
know this story.
yeah, yeah. And that was kind of the start of the anti-network. I decided to pretty simple iteration on the antidote, but I called it the anti-network and I did these pop-up events in Sydney and in Melbourne. And the very first thing I got people to do when they entered the room was I created a wall, which was just called the insecurity wall. And I got everyone to write on a post-it what their biggest career insecurity is as they walked into the room. And I think it just set the tone that this isn't a place where you have to pretend, you don't have to act like you've got your shit together, like you don't have to wear a mask. But the reason why I'm sharing this is because I think it's just a good reminder to know that most people hate networking and most people dislike the environment and people don't really want to fake it and they want to make genuine connection. So we're kind of all in the same boat, I actually think, when it comes to networking. But I'd love to know, yeah, like what your experience has been with networking and I guess what you've seen as well on the other side.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you just said. I see three big things that people typically get wrong. And so, for the first one, I want to tell you very quickly about the most transformational professional network I've ever been part of. It was founded in 2008 in the streets of Surrey Hills, literally the streets, because it was called Gutter Club, and it was just a collective of early career people working in tech and creative roles, and we would meet every Tuesday outside Single Origin and we would drink coffee and sit in the gutter and talk about plans to take over the world and help each other. And, it started from 3 people and then it ended up being sort of 20, sometimes 30 people consistently every Tuesday. And that was it. It was very simple. There was no more to it than that. And the reason it has been the best professional network of my life is because all these people, we were nobodies at the time. We were just young, trying to come up in our career. And now everyone is, cut to a decade later, everyone is at the top of their field. So there's like, founders of unicorn startups and partners at VC firms and authors and heads of record labels, anesthetists, whatever. Like everyone is running their own business and amazing. And there was nothing special about that group of people. We were just a group of people who did it. But the point is, like, we grew up with each other. And so I could never
Mm.
have these like deep relationships if I was trying to build that collective now. So I think just the trick to kind of doing that is you have to sort of brand it in a way and make it a thing. Otherwise, it's just hanging out. You need consistency, and you sort of need a bit of a ringleader or someone to keep the vibes going. Otherwise, the momentum can get lost.
Oh, I love that so much. I want us to help everyone find their gutter club. Is it still going today? Or do you have a
Yeah, like
group
we also
chat or
no,
something?
we don't meet up anymore, but it's like we still help each other. So I use
Mm.
this like daily, weekly. I hit people up, and the thing is, I do see people doing this. So just a couple examples that I've seen recently of people doing the same thing. There's one I saw the other day called Marketing and Margs, and it's basically young people who work in marketing meeting up every month to have margaritas and chat. There's another one of young entrepreneurial women called Beyond Besties, and they have the most amazing, they've got an incredible Slack group and then the most amazing meetups where they talk about very interesting topics from like making money to like your star signs and what that means for work. So I do see lots of these groups, people doing, run clubs and swim clubs and stuff. But have you seen some too? We could actually, what we should do? We'll post this on LinkedIn and maybe tag some of the people who are running these clubs, and people can maybe create a space for people to promote their little groups and collectives that they've got as well. Would be cool.
Yeah, I love that because I think when you like niche in on something as well, it can feel like less scary to join and like you've all got common challenges or common goals. And so it's a slightly less intimidating environment than like a traditional larger networking event as well. But yeah, I would love us to get some DMs like a month or two from now saying that we've helped people find their gutter club. So what
Yes.
what should people like, let's help everyone get there. What should people not do? Like, what are you seeing people get wrong?
Yeah. So I really think if you need some kind of unique premise, right? So like decide who your audience is, decide kind of what the vibe is going to be. You do need to brand it, like give it a name and like have some consistency. So whether it's monthly meetups or or weekly, whatever it is. Nowadays you would have your community groups or you'd have a website for it, whatever. Yeah, that's basically it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. I think people are doing some really cool stuff with meetups and things like that, like programming content, but you can keep it pretty simple. So that's number one that people get wrong. So thinking that you can only network up when really you can build your own network. Number two thing that people get wrong is the worst time to try and build a network is when you need something. So, for example, you're trying to find a new job and you all of a sudden want to start networking with people. The best time to build your network is right now. It's an always on thing, and that's how you need to approach it. I think that's especially true of internal networking at your company. Don't try and like make friends with stakeholders right before you want to get promoted and you want them to give you a peer review. You should be making those relationships all the time. So, just a couple of quick tips, Michelle, in terms of the things that I've seen that will help people um, if you have sort of loose connections with people, or maybe it's people you've met on in person, or you've kind of got these connections on LinkedIn, you're like, well, how do I maintain those relationships with them? So the things that I've seen that I think work really well to this sort of always on approach to networking, if you sort of met someone and you saw them speak in an event and maybe you connected with them and you haven't spoken to them for a couple of months, if something that they taught you then has an impact on you, go and tell them. So be like,
Mm,
that thing that you said in that event 2 months ago, this is how it kind of changed something that I did. So go back and tell them. That is the most powerful thing. People love you for that, no matter how senior they are. Sharing recommendations works really well. So I have lots of young people who'll be like, I thought you'd like this for this specific reason. And they'll share me like a link to something. Make it specific and make sure you're telling the person sort of why you think that they would like it. Or just like have some kind of consistent activity that you do together. So I have people where I'm trying to maintain my relationships with them in my network, and we'll do like a monthly exercise thing together. And then number three is give first, never take. So try to be a helper, have that mindset. So go into it. Your network in a way is like a bank account. And in your relationship with someone, you want to be building up a bank of deposits before you start to make withdrawals. So I think just a couple of quick examples of what you can give or how you can be a helper, especially like early career, right? You're kind of like, well, what can I be possibly giving to someone more senior? First thing, intelligent responses to stuff they're posting online is like people think, oh, this person's got so many followers, they won't care about what I say. They honestly do. So like engage in their posts and don't just do a generic like loved this. Have an intelligent sort of response to something they've written. And the other one that I love, someone did this to me the other day. Someone took something that I posted on TikTok. They then created a sort of extended little summary of what it was and some thoughts that they had on it. And they put it into a doc for me. It was about the topic of respond, don't react. And they put it into this document that was something that I could share with other people that was like this beautiful little one pager. So now when I'm having mentoring sessions with other people and I was like, oh, I've got this point, I link them and I was like, here's a doc about it. So this person essentially like made a massive shortcut for me and created something that I will now use every day.
mm.
So yeah, Michelle, you'd probably have some great tips on this too.
No, I just love that last one so much. And the analogy of the bank account, I think, is spot on and makes it really easy to understand and also to potentially put yourself in the position of the person who's being asked as well. Because I think for me, the biggest turn off is when it feels too transactional. And networking can be, there can be transactional elements to it. But an example, like I've got an example of something that happened recently and it made
Yeah.
me feel really weird because I love helping other people and like wherever I can, like I'll give the intro, I'll give the opportunity, I'll give the information. And so it makes me feel incredibly conflicted when someone then hits me up and I feel like their ask is crossing a line potentially. So I had someone introduced to me through a warm intro, and when the warm intro was brought to me, it was that this person was looking for some advice on how to build their personal brand and show up online. So I was like, sure, 100%, I'll chat to that person. Then the person reached out to me and actually just asked me to introduce them to two semi-famous people that I know. And I was like,
Um,
like, I barely know you, and now you're asking for some of my most, prolific for some of the most prolific people in my own network, and you
yeah.
kind of want me to put myself out to make those intros for you when I barely know you, and there's been no exchange here
It's so
whatsoever.
it's so transparent, isn't it, what people really want? I know you can really read when people haven't taken the time to get to know you. They don't really care about you. They just want something from
Yeah.
you. It's so easy to see.
It kinda makes you feel like shit as
Yeah, I
well
know.
in a
It's like you
way.
don't care about me at all. You just want something
Yeah.
from me. And the flip
Yeah.
side, like I really see when people get in touch with me and they have taken the time to get to know me, they write something personal. You can see when people have these generic things that you can tell they're just sending everyone. The one that I'm getting all the time at the moment. I used to think
Mm.
this was good, but now I've seen it so many times that I'm just like, oh, this is just like a canned thing people send. Is they'll say, really like your content. Can you give me one book recommendation? They basically just try to ask you a question, anything that will hook you into responding. But I've seen that so many times now that I'm just like too generic. So just
Mm.
like really, if you're going to reach out to someone, spend 15 minutes getting to know them and actually like give a shit about them before you
Yeah.
go and ask them for something.
I also think your example of engaging in their content, it's so simple and
Yeah.
so easy for you to do, and it really does make a difference. Like when I was at Bumble, we had a whole Bumble Honey cohort, so we essentially had like 30 interns at once, and so many of those interns I still have relationships with and will help out, and it's because we're kind of always casually chatting in DMs, and like they've made a bit of an effort to maintain the relationship, and it does pay off.
I love that. The other point that you made, Michelle, around it being transactional, the more I think the interesting thing is the more senior you get and the longer you have these relationships for, it's so cool in terms of the favors people are willing to do, but you have to build up to that, right? So, like, I
Yeah.
see, and that's kind of the way stuff gets done when you're at the most senior level. People do insane favors for each other, move mountains because they know at some point that person's going to pay them back, but you
Yeah.
can't start with that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree. All right, so we've covered what people are getting wrong when it comes to networking and how you should be thinking about it. Now we're going to get into the practical gems that Soph and I have collected. Some of them we've collected from others, some of them are our own. So, tip one is how to nail where you stand in the room. I found this on TikTok and I just loved it because it was really simple, and it's from a CEO and author whose name is Crystal. We'll include the link to her TikTok account in the show notes. But she kind of unpacked my biggest fear, I think, and why I find those more traditional networking events so uncomfortable, because it actually starts for me from the moment you enter the room, where it's
Mm.
like deer in headlights. What the fuck is going on? Who do I know here? Where do I stand? Am I going to get trapped? So this TikTok video talks about there being three different zones when it comes to networking. So the first zone is the entry zone, and this is where you absolutely do not want to stand. So don't come into the room and just hang around in that entry zone, because as people are coming in, you might end up in a conversation with them, but they're going to be looking over your shoulder. They're going to be trying to assess the room as well. They're also a little bit deer and headlighty at that point. So they'll kind of just be looking over your shoulder and be wanting to move on to the next. So avoid the entry zone. The second zone is the sticky zones, and these are also to be avoided at all costs. So, a sticky zone, for example, is like a table where you might be sitting down, eating food, having drinks. It's a bit hard to get in conversation because you're eating, but you're also going to get stuck with the person next to you. And it's often very hard to get out
I
of
had a
that.
physical reaction, like PTSD from getting stuck at networking events, talking to people you don't want to talk to. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. A second sticky zone is if you know someone. So if you know someone at the event, it can feel so natural to just go and seek that person out and find comfort in that existing relationship, but it's going to hold you back. So, a good idea is to, if you see someone you know, be like, hey, great to see you. I'm just going to go and chat to this person, but I'm going to come find you later. And just like park those ones and give yourself the best opportunity to meet new people.
So good.
The third zone, and this is where you want to be existing, there's two options. The first one is by the bar. So she says that as people are leaving the bar, they've got their drink, they're feeling settled, and they're ready for a conversation. And a really easy in can just be like, cheers, someone, introduce yourself. And that's a good opportunity to start a conversation where you're probably both ready. The second good zone to be in is near the host. So going up to the host, introducing yourself, thanking them for inviting you, and then you could even ask them, is there anyone here that you would suggest I speak to? And then maybe they can help introduce you to someone else who's in a similar space to you or someone that they think might be a good connection for you. But by the host, they're also going to have a lot of people just around them. So it's also a good zone to exist in. So I
Mind
feel like,
blown. That is
yes,
epic advice.
yeah, it's so simple. But I also feel like for someone who's a bit scared, I also feel like by the host is also a nice icebreaker as well. Like this is someone who's there to welcome you, is going to be down for a chat. But she does make a point actually, like only if they're looking available. Like you don't want to loiter around them.
Yeah.
So yeah, by the bar or by the host, that's how you're going to nail where you stand at a networking event.
Love it. And one super quick build. If it is a sit down dinner, often the people or like the two people that you're chatting to right before everyone goes to sit down will be the people you end up sitting with if they haven't decided where people are sitting, because you'll end up walking sort of into the seating area with those people. So very strategically, if there's a particular person that you really want to sit next to at dinner, try to make sure that you are talking to them or close to them right before they say, okay, everyone come and sit down. All right, that was number one. Michelle, hit us with number two.
Okay, number two is how to deliver your intro and potentially get someone to help you. So I also just felt like this was brilliant because I think people can get a little bit word vomity with their elevator pitch and people can kind of tune out to what you're saying. So, this is also inspired from another TikTok video. So, this creator, Grace, has a three-part structure to how you should deliver your intro, and it's across three sentences. So, the first sentence should be what my business output is. So, you're not giving them your life story, you're just telling them in one line what your business output is.
Can you give us an example?
Mine would be, hey, I'm Michelle. I run a startup that allows female creators to make money.
Boom. So good.
The second line would be why I'm here tonight. Why I'm here tonight for me would be I'm looking to meet more female founders that are in the tech startup or more female founders that are in the tech industry. And then the third line would be what type of help you need. And I love this. So I'll use myself as an example. Maybe I'll say, you know what, I've reached this place in my business at the moment where our growth is plateauing. And I would love to speak to anyone who has experience with this and talk about ways that I could kickstart things. If anyone's been there, done that, I'd love to have a 15-minute virtual catch up. We could skills share. Let me know.
Do you know what I love about this? Connecting it to that point we made earlier around approach it of in terms of how you can help other people. For everyone who just listened to what you said, I instantly have ideas of how I can help you. So that means that that lets me start that relationship with you in a way where I can be a helper because you've just told me what you need. I love it.
Exactly. And also I loved that she was encouraging people to be vulnerable. Like asking what you need help with is like, let's not all pretend we've got our shit sorted. Let's get right into it. Like being vulnerable and showing where your challenges might be also just opens other people up to start talking about similar things.
So
And
good.
she also made a great point, which was people are desperate for something to talk about, and you've just offered a bit of a topic for the room. And then I loved that in her example, she also ended with, I'd be happy to skills share. So, like, you're also offering something back, you know? So, if they've got a challenge, you can also discuss it in the same conversation. And virtual coffee, you know, I'm not asking you to take an hour out of your time, out of your day and come and meet me for lunch. Like, we can just do this on Zoom.
That is amazing advice. Okay, so that was tip number 2, how to do your intro. Mine's very quick. Tip number 3 is how to actually exit a conversation. So do not let yourself get stuck in a conversation you don't want to be in. Be confident in exiting, and this is how I do it. It's called the white flag method. So white flag means with motor racing, they'll often wave a white flag, and that signals this is the last lap. You do the exact same thing in conversations. You say to someone, I have to go and talk to someone else in a minute, but before I do, tell me one more thing about blah, whatever they were just talking about. Tell me one more thing about that trip you're planning, or tell me one more thing about, that project you were telling me about. It just gives people an option to like say the last thing that they want to say, and you're not just like, okay, gotta go. But just be confident in leaving. Don't feel awkward about it. It's possible that person doesn't want to talk to you anymore anyway. So just like, do not go to events and waste your time. I am brutal with this shit. So yeah, just like white flag method. That is my point number 3.
Oh, I feel like that is such an important one because getting stuck can be the worst part. So you've got permission to leave, and yeah, love that tip.
Awesome. Okay, tip number 4 is how to nail cold outreach on LinkedIn. So we've kind of focused on some event networking stuff. Michelle mentioned in her intro that there's lots of different types, and one of them is social networking online. And so there's just a couple of ingredients that I think when you're doing cold outreach on LinkedIn. So the first and most important thing is make it personal to the person. So I'm not going to give you like a perfect template for this because I just really want you to spend some time getting to know the person that you're planning to reach out to and try and make it personal to them. So read some of their recent posts, something, if you've seen them on a podcast, whatever it is, just try to have your first line just be something about something that they've said or something that something that you know about them, and then make it specific. So whatever your kind of ask is, instead of saying, would love to pick your brain, Michelle knows that I hate that line. You just want to make it specific. I'd specifically love to ask you about this, or whatever your actual ask is. And just don't be formulaic. Don't be boring. Try to just have something that would make someone want to respond to you. I think the thing people forget is, especially when they get onto LinkedIn, it's like we all lose our personality and we all just start sounding like everyone else. Honestly, the main thing, just don't be boring. Just like you are an interesting person. There is so many interesting, unique things about you and value that you can give to other people. So just don't hide that and don't be boring.
My last tip segues nicely off the back of that, and it's how to share your wins on LinkedIn. Because I think after you send an outreach on LinkedIn, the first thing that person's going to do, if your message appeals to them, is they're going to click on your profile and see what you've been up to. And I just think it's so valuable to share your insights on LinkedIn. And often it can feel really cringe doing that. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it was just such a brilliant reframe in my own mind. And it's from Adam Grant. And he speaks about the difference between self promotion and idea promotion. And there is a very big difference. He defines self promotion as talking about yourself, your achievements, why people should pay attention to you. And it can sometimes come across as egotistical or self serving. Versus idea promotion, sharing valuable insights, new perspectives, solutions to problems. And this positions you as an authority without the message being about you. And so I
So
think,
good.
yeah, that flip is just so great. And it isn't icky, it isn't gross to talk about what you're working on or what you've witnessed or something that surprised you. So I think when it comes to LinkedIn, just flipping it and thinking about it like that, hopefully will remove some of that that you
Oh
might
my God.
feel when you're, yeah,
That is
talking about your experiences.
oh my God, that is my favorite tip that you've shared in this episode. That is epic. Okay, so that is our 5 tips for how to do networking in an ungross way. I want to close, Michelle, by giving you a bit of a summary of the stuff we've talked about so you really understand that the sort of action points and what you today can go away and do. Michelle, to wrap up the episode, I want to tell you about the most prolific networker that I have met in my entire career, and he was 14 years old.
I'm shook. 14.
Yeah, he textbook everything we've just spoken about, started doing when he was 14 years old. He's still in my network today. He's 30. So what he did when he was 14 years old, he started, I was working at MySpace. He wanted to break into the music industry. He started to help promote a lot of the stuff and events and things that we were posting on MySpace. So started doing that piece around supporting my posts online. Then he reached out and said, hey, I can help you organize focus groups with other people who are young like me so you can get some insights. So he organized free focus groups with all of his mates from school. They would come and drop them all off at the office. We would do pizza and Coke, and I would just get all of these incredible insights. Focus groups are very expensive, by the way, and hard to organize. So that was just an insane piece of value that he gave us. And then he created a little collective, or he was part of a collective of other young kids who were organizing under 18s music festivals. Their first one was at the Oxford Arts Factory, and the band they had playing was Tame Impala.
Oh my
I know,
God.
obviously before
Where
Tame
is he
Impala got
now?
famous. Exactly. Where is he now?
Yeah.
So they organized, they did BYO community. They built their own community. And then, from there, he'd always stayed in touch with me and sent me amazing, relevant articles, just was like a huge helper throughout my whole career. He did this strategically to lots of other people in the music industry. And now, he worked at Triple J, and then he is now the managing director of a big record label living out of LA, and he managed artists like Flume and G Flip. So just the perfect example of, and everyone knows this guy, everyone knows Harry White. I guarantee you someone listening to this podcast will know Harry White. If you think you can't do this, he started doing that when he was 14 years old. And
Oh my God.
just has an incredible career because of the network that he built. So that's a little bit of inspiration for you. Get out there and do it.
Holy shit, people are creating Instagram pages for their children, but I'm going to create a LinkedIn for our feed tonight.
Oh my God. I love it.